5 years ago, a retired doctor vanished into the misty trails of Mount Rainier, leaving his wife with nothing but questions. Today, a discovery in a beaver dam might hold the truth or a darker secret. Hey, don't forget to like, please subscribe for more shocking crime stories and hit the bell icon. The darkest truth are yet to come. In the quiet Tacoma suburb of Forest, Washington, the morning of June 28, 2025, began like any other for Ellen Marshall. The kettle whistled softly on the stove, filling the kitchen with the familiar scent of chamomile tea. At 62, Ellen moved with the deliberate calm of someone who'd weathered life's storms, her silver hair tucked neatly behind her ears as she gazed out the window toward the distant, snow-capped silhouette of Mount Rainier. It was a view she and her husband, Dr. Thomas Marshall, had cherished for 35 years of marriage, a reminder of hikes they'd shared, hands clasped, laughing through the evergreens. But 5 years ago, Thomas kissed her goodbye, promised to be back by dusk, and set off for a solo hike to clear his head after retiring from Puget Sound Medical Group. He never returned. The ache of not knowing had carved a hollow in Ellen's chest, dull but never gone, as she stirred sugar into her tea, lost in memories of his warm laugh and steady hands. The phone's sharp ring shattered the quiet, making Ellen flinch, the spoon clattering into the sink. She glanced at the caller ID, Mount Rainier National Park. Her breath caught. They hadn't called in 3 years, not since the last fruitless search update. Mrs. Marshall, this is Ranger Emily Torres, a calm voice said. We need you to come to the Longmire Ranger Station. Hikers found a backpack in a beaver dam upstream from Cougar Rock yesterday, and we traced it through its GPS serial number. It belongs to your husband. Ellen's knees buckled, her hand gripping the counter. A backpack, after 5 years. Is there any sign of him? She managed, her voice trembling. No remains, ma'am, but we need you to confirm the item and answer some questions. The police are here. Ellen's mind spun as she grabbed her keys, the weight of hope and dread pressing against her ribs. The drive to Longmire was a blur, the familiar winding roads along the Nisqually River blurring past as memories flooded in. Thomas, with his worn hiking boots and meticulous trail maps, always planned every hike like a surgical procedure, precise, cautious, prepared. He'd hiked Rainier's trails for decades, knew every switchback, every ridge. The idea of him getting lost or falling was unthinkable. Yet the official report from 2020 had been blunt: accident or suicide, case closed. Ellen had fought that verdict, her instincts screaming that Thomas, who'd been planning their dream trip to Glacier National Park, would never leave her like that. She pulled into the ranger station lot, where 2 police cruisers flanked the park's green SUV. Her stomach twisted as she stepped inside, the scent of cedar and damp earth triggering memories of Thomas's muddy boots by their front door. Ranger Torres, a wiry woman in her 30s with a kind but guarded expression, greeted her. Mrs. Marshall, thank you for coming. This is Detective Laura Bennett, Pierce County Sheriff's Office. Bennett, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a nonsense braid, offered a firm handshake. I'm sorry we're meeting like this. Please, sit. They led Ellen to a small office, where a mud-streaked backpack sat on a metal table, its green nylon torn, the zipper rusted. Ellen's breath hitched. It was Thomas's, a gift from their son for his 60th birthday, complete with the black carabiner he always clipped to the strap. It was found in a beaver dam upstream from Cougar Rock, about 6 miles from Paradise, Torres explained. The GPS tracker's serial number matched the one you registered in 2020. Ellen reached out, her fingers brushing the fabric, her throat tight. This is his, she whispered. Detective Bennett opened a laptop, pulling up a map. The GPS memory card was intact despite water damage. It shows Dr. Marshall's last known location, and it's unusual. She pointed to a red dot in a remote section of the park, far from any marked trail. He was here, miles from where he told you he'd be hiking. Ellen shook her head, her voice firm. That's impossible. Thomas never went off. He filed his routes with the park, carried a satellite phone, checked weather reports obsessively. He was a doctor methodical to a fault. Bennett's eyes softened, but her tone stayed professional. The data is clear. He was in a remain, case closed. Ellen had fought that verdict, her instincts screaming that Thomas, who'd been planning their dream trip to Glacier National Park, would never leave her like that. She pulled into the ranger station lot, where 2 police cruisers flanked the park's green SUV. Her stomach twisted as she stepped inside, the scent of cedar and damp earth triggering memories of Thomas's muddy boots by their front door. Ranger Torres, a wiry woman in her 30s with a kind but guarded expression, greeted her. Mrs. Marshall, thank you for coming. This is Detective Laura Bennett, Pierce County Sheriff's Office. Bennett, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a nonsense braid, offered a firm handshake. I'm sorry we're meeting like this. Please, sit. They led Ellen to a small office, where a mud-streaked backpack sat on a metal table. Its green nylon torn, the zipper rusted. Ellen's breath hitched. It was Thomas's, a gift from their son for his 60th birthday, complete with the black carabiner. He always clipped to the strap. It was found in a beaver dam upstream from Cougar Rock, about 6 miles from Paradise, Torres explained. The GPS tracker's serial number matched the one you registered in 2020. Ellen reached out, her fingers brushing the fabric, her throat tight. This is his, she whispered. Detective Bennett opened a laptop, pulling up a map. The GPS memory card was intact despite water damage. It shows Dr. Marshall's last known location, and it's unusual. She pointed to a red dot in a remote section of the park, far from any marked trail. He was here, miles from where he told you he'd be hiking. Ellen shook her head, her voice firm. That's impossible. Thomas never went off. He filed his routes with the park, carried a satellite phone, checked weather reports obsessively. He was a doctor methodical to a fault. Bennett's eyes softened, but her tone stayed professional. The data is clear. He was in a rugged area near a ravine. Given the location and no remains, we're still considering accident or intentional disappearance. Ellen's voice cracked. Suicide. Thomas was happy. We had planned a road trip, visiting our grandkids. He wasn't depressed. Bennett leaned forward. Mrs. Marshall, I understand this is hard, but after 5 years, with wildlife and weather, there's often little left to find. The backpack suggests he fell into the river, carried downstream. We searched the coordinates again this morning, nothing. Ellen's hands clenched. You're giving up again, Torres interjected gently. We're not giving up, but we're limited by what we have. The case remains cold unless new evidence surfaces. Ellen stared at the backpack. Its contents laid out. A warped medical ID with Thomas's smiling face, a waterlogged permit dated August 12, 2020, a shattered phone. The dam is miles from any trail, Torres added. For it to end up there, he had to be somewhere he didn't plan to be. Ellen's mind raced. Thomas off trail. It didn't add up. Something was wrong, something he hadn't told her. Back home, Ellen couldn't shake the image of the backpack, its mud-stained straps haunting her. Thomas had been her rock. The man who'd bandaged their kids' scraped knees with the same care he gave his patients. His retirement had been a celebration, not a crisis. So why the secrecy? Why the off-trail data? She drove to Puget Sound Medical Group, where Thomas had worked for 25 years, hoping his old colleagues might know something. The clinic had changed new signage, a sleek waiting room replacing the cozy one Thomas loved. The receptionist, a young man with no memory of Thomas, directed her to Maria Delgado, a nurse who'd worked with him for a decade. Maria, now in her 50s with warm eyes and graying curls, met Ellen in the break room, her face lighting up with recognition. Ellen, oh my God, it's been years. Are you okay? Ellen poured out the morning's events, the backpack, the GPS data, the police's theories. Maria's expression darkened. That doesn't sound like Thomas. He was the most careful person I knew, on trails and in the OR. Ellen leaned forward. Maria, did he seem off before he retired? Anything unusual? Maria hesitated, glancing at the door. He was different that last week. Distracted, he kept taking calls in private, which wasn't like him. Once I saw him in the parking lot, meeting some guy in a suit, didn't look like a patient. Thomas brushed it off, said it was about retirement planning, but he looked worried. Ellen's pulse quickened. Worried how? Maria lowered her voice. His hands were fidgety, like he was nervous. And he was checking his phone constantly, even during rounds. That wasn't Thomas. Ellen drove home, her mind churning. Thomas, nervous, meeting someone in secret. She hauled boxes from their garage where she'd stored his office belongings after his disappearance, too heartbroken to sort them then. Dust coated her hands as she rifled through medical journals, patient thank you notes, and old prescription pads. In a box marked desk, MISC, she found a small leather notebook, its edges worn. Inside, Thomas's neat handwriting listed appointments, grocery lists, and then, in the final pages, cryptic notes. Billing anomalies check Q3 2019, KL meeting, 8/12, Trailhead, call PNWRA protections. Her heart pounded. PNW likely Pierce and Walsh, a local law firm specializing in employment law, billing anomalies. What had Thomas stumbled onto? She dialed the firm, her hands shaking. Pierce and Walsh, how may I assist? A receptionist answered. Ellen explained she was calling about her husband, Dr. Thomas Marshall, a client from 2020. After a brief hold, a lawyer, Susan Walsh, took the call. Mrs. Marshall, I can confirm Dr. Marshall consulted us in August 2020 about whistleblower protections. He was concerned about workplace retaliation and documenting evidence of financial irregularities. Ellen's mouth went dry. What kind of irregularities? Walsh paused. I'm bound by privilege, but he was gathering evidence of potential fraud. He mentioned a meeting on August 12th to confront someone. He was due back on August 13th but never showed. Ellen's hands trembled. August 12th, the day he vanished. Did he say who he was meeting? Walsh hesitated. He mentioned initials KL. That's all I can share. Ellen stared at the notebook. The initials KL burning into her. Who was it? A colleague? A friend? She cross-referenced Thomas's old emails on his dusty laptop, finding nothing. As dusk settled, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She answered, cautious. Mrs. Marshall. A low, unfamiliar voice said, You're asking questions about Thomas. Stop digging. You don't know what you're stirring up. The line went dead. Ellen's heart raced, her eyes darting to the windows. Was someone watching? She double-checked the locks, her breath shallow. The notebook felt heavier now, a Pandora's box of secrets Thomas had died for. Had he uncovered something? At the medical group? Fraud? Maybe worse. And why had he kept it from her, the woman he shared everything with? The next morning, Ellen drove to a coffee shop to think, the notebook tucked in her purse. She noticed a black sedan in her rearview mirror, following too closely. At a gas station, she pulled over, hoping to lose it. As she filled her tank, a man in his 40s, wearing a faded jacket and baseball cap, approached. Ellen Marshall, he asked, his voice low. She froze, nodding. I knew Thomas. He was onto something big, dangerous. They're still watching. He slipped a USB drive into her hand, his eyes darting nervously. This has what he found. Be careful. Before she could respond, he vanished into the parking lot. Ellen stared at the USB, her hands trembling. The sedan was gone, but the weight of the drive felt like a ticking bomb. Should she open it? What had Thomas died for Rand, who was still watching her? Ellen Marshall sat in her dimly lit living room, the USB drive cold in her palm, its weight heavier than its size suggested. The stranger's words at the gas station echoed in her mind. They're still watching. Her Tacoma home, once a haven of warmth with Thomas's laughter filling every corner, now felt like a trap, its shadows too deep, its silence too loud. She glanced at the locked front door, the curtains drawn tight, and sent a quick text to her sister Claire at home. Got something from a guy about Thomas. If I don't call in an hour, check on me. Claire's reply was instant. Ellen, what's going on? Call now. But Ellen needed answers first. Her fingers hovered over her laptop, the USB port glowing faintly. What had Thomas found that was worth dying for? And who was still watching her, 5 years later? She plugged in the drive, her heart pounding as a password prompt appeared. Thomas had always used their wedding date for important files, 060890. She typed it in, and the screen unlocked, revealing a folder labeled PSMG Evidence. Inside were spreadsheets, scanned invoices, and a PDF titled Notes. Ellen opened the first spreadsheet, her breath catching. Rows of billing codes, patient names, and dates stretched across the screen, with handwritten annotations in Thomas's precise script, built for non-existent procedures. Q3 2019 unreported cash deposits, $200,000, 7/20. Another sheet listed prescriptions for painkillers, flagged as diverted. No patient record. Her stomach churned. Puget Sound Medical Group was involved in fraud, maybe worse. A final note read, KL oversees all billing. Confront 8/12. Sunrise Trailhead. K.L. Kenneth Larson, the medical group's director. Ellen remembered him, charming, impeccably dressed, always quick with a smile at staff dinners. Thomas had called him a friend, but these notes painted a different picture. She opened the PDF, a scanned page from Thomas's notebook. Suspect illegal drug sales through PSMG. Larson's signature on falsified records. Met P&W for whistleblower protections. 8/10. Must confront KL before FBI. Ellen's hands shook. Thomas had been building a case, risking everything to expose Larson's crimes. Had that meeting at the trailhead cost him his life? She grabbed her phone to call Detective Laura Bennett, but a creak from the back porch stopped her cold. Her eyes darted to the window. Was it just the wind, or was someone out there? Ellen crept to the kitchen, clutching her phone, and peered through the blinds. The backyard was dark, the only light from a distant street. Nothing moved. She dialed Bennett, her voice low. "Detective, it's Ellen Marshall. I found something files Thomas left about fraud at his medical group. Someone's following me, and I got a USB from a stranger who knew him." Bennett's tone sharpened. "Stay put, lock your doors, and don't open that drive on an internet-connected device. I'm sending a patrol car. Where are you?" Ellen gave her address, her pulse racing. "It's about Kenneth Larson, the director. Thomas was going to confront him." Bennett paused. "Larson's a big name in Seattle now. Don't do anything until we talk. Stay safe." As Ellen hung up, a sharp knock at the front door made her jump. She froze, waiting. Silence. Then, under the door, a folded note slid into view, its edges stark against the hardwood. Ellen's hands trembled as she picked up the note, unfolding it slowly. In bold black ink, it read, "Stop now or you'll end up like him." Her breath hitched, tears pricking her eyes. Whoever was behind this knew she was close to close. She snapped a photo of the note and sent it to Bennett, then tucked the USB into her purse. Sleep was impossible that night, every creak of the house amplifying her fear. By morning, a patrol officer had swept the property, finding no signs of a break-in, but the note was enough to escalate the case. Ellen drove back to Puget Sound Medical Group, needing more from Maria Delgado. The clinic's sterile waiting room felt colder now, the new decor a stark contrast to the warmth Thomas had cultivated. Maria met her in the same break room, face pale. "Ellen, you look like you haven't slept. What's happened?" Ellen recounted the USB, the files, and the threatening note, keeping her voice low. Maria's eyes widened. "Fraud. At PSMG, that explains things." She glanced at the door, then leaned closer. After Thomas disappeared, Larson changed. He was always polished, but suddenly he was driving a new Lexus, talking about a big expansion. A year later, he sold the practice for millions and opened a fancy clinic in Seattle-State-of-the-art. Big investors. Ellen's pulse quickened. Did he act strange before Thomas vanished? Maria nodded. He was obsessive about Thomas's patient files, wouldn't let anyone touch them, said he was streamlining records himself. "I thought it was weird he was the director, not an admin." Ellen's mind raced. Larson was covering his tracks, just as Thomas's notes suggested. But what was he hiding beyond fraud? Back home, Ellen pored over the USB files again, using an old laptop disconnected from Wi-Fi as Bennett advised. The prescription records were damning hundreds of opioid scripts issued to non-existent patients, with Larson's initials on every approval. A hidden audio file, buried in a subfolder, stopped her cold. It was Thomas's voice, calm but tense, recorded days before he vanished. "If you're hearing this, I'm likely gone. Kenneth Larson's running a prescription drug ring through PSMG, falsifying records to cover it. I've got proof billing discrepancies, bank transfers, fake patient files. I'm meeting him on August 12th to give him a chance to come clean. If he doesn't, I'm going to the FBI." Ellen's tears fell, her heart breaking at Thomas's courage. He'd known the risk and faced it anyway, for justice. Ellen called Bennett, uploading the files to a secure server the detective provided. "This is big, Mrs. Marshall," Bennett said. "Larson's new clinic is under federal scrutiny for similar patterns. We're building a case, but you need to stay low. Don't confront anyone." Ellen agreed, but the need for answers burned. She had to know why Larson met Thomas that morning and what happened on that trail. Against her better judgment, she found Larson's new clinic online, a gleaming facility in downtown Seattle. Posing as a grieving widow seeking closure, she called and requested a meeting. Larson agreed, suggesting a public park near Pike Place Market that afternoon. "I'd like to talk about Thomas," he said smoothly. "He was a good friend." Ellen's skin crawled. Friend or murderer? At the park, Ellen sat on a bench overlooking Puget Sound, the USB and a small voice recorder hidden in her purse. Larson arrived, his silver hair catching the sunlight, his tailored suit a far cry from the modest doctor she'd known. "Ellen," he said, his smile practiced but strained. "I'm so sorry about the backpack news. It must be devastating." She nodded, forcing calm. "It's brought up memories. Thomas spoke so highly of you. Kenneth, did you see him that last week?" Larson's eyes flickered, but he recovered quickly, briefly. "At the office, he was stressed about retiring, big life change. You know," Ellen pressed, her voice steady. "He mentioned meeting you, maybe about work. Anything stand out?" Larson's smile tightened. "Just casual chats, nothing specific." Ellen's heart pounded, but she pushed further. "He wrote about a meeting with you on August 12th. at the Sunrise Trailhead, said it was important. Larson's face froze, his fingers twitching against his coffee cup. A misunderstanding, he said quickly. He called me that morning, sounding off, said he needed to hike alone, clear his head. I offered to join, but he refused. The lie was blatant, his voice too smooth. Ellen's recorder captured every word. That's odd, she said, watching his reaction. His notes mentioned billing issues at PSMG and meeting you to discuss them. Larson's jaw clenched, a bead of sweat on his brow despite the cool breeze. Thomas was mistaken. He was confused toward the end. Ellen stood, her legs unsteady but her resolve firm. I should go. Thanks for meeting me. Larson grabbed her arm, his grip tight. Ellen, don't stir up old ghosts. Some things are better left buried. She pulled free, her heart racing, and walked to her car, feeling his eyes on her back. In her rearview mirror, she saw Larson on his phone, his expression dark. As she drove through Tacoma's evening traffic, a black sedan appeared behind her, the same one from yesterday. Her pulse spiked. She took a sharp turn into a busy shopping center, hoping to lose it, but the sedan stayed close, its headlights glaring. Panic surged as she realized Larson wasn't letting this go. Ellen called 911, her voice shaking. I'm being followed. I'm at the Tacoma Mall parking lot. It's about my husband's case, Dr. Thomas Marshall. I think it's Kenneth Larson or someone he sent. The operator instructed her to stay in a well-lit area and wait for police. Minutes later, sirens wailed, and the sedan sped off. 2 officers arrived, escorting Ellen to the station, where Detective Bennett was waiting. Ellen handed over the USB and her recording of Larson's evasive answers. He's lying, she said, tears in her eyes. Thomas wasn't confused. He was going to expose Larson's drug ring. Bennett's face was grim. We've got enough to bring him in. The FBI's already tracking his Seattle clinic. Stay with your sister tonight, we'll handle this. At the station, Ellen watched through a one-way mirror as Bennett interrogated Larson. His polished facade crumbled under the weight of the evidence Thomas's files. The audio, Ellen's recording. All right, Larson snapped, his voice breaking. Thomas found out about the prescriptions. I was selling pills on the side small time to keep the practice afloat. He had proof, said he'd go to the FBI if I didn't confess. I met him at the trailhead to talk, brought 2 guys from maintenance to intimidate him. Ellen's heart sank as Larson's voice dropped. It got out of hand. Thomas wouldn't back down. One of them pushed him over the cliff, a 150-foot drop. We trashed his GPS, threw his backpack in the river, thought it was done. Ellen's knees buckled, tears streaming down her face. Thomas murdered for his integrity. Bennett pressed Larson, who named his accomplices 2 former PSMG janitors, now working at his Seattle clinic. They did the dirty work, he spat. I just wanted him to shut up. Ellen turned away, unable to hear more, as officers cuffed Larson. Bennett joined her, her voice soft. We sent a team to the cliffside based on his confession. They found remains lodged in a crevice. DNA will confirm, but it's likely Thomas. Ellen nodded, her throat too tight to speak. She could finally bring him home. The next week, Ellen stood at a Tacoma cemetery, the air crisp with October chill. Thomas's remains, confirmed by DNA, lay in a simple oak casket, surrounded by family and friends. Maria was there, tears in her eyes, whispering, he was a hero. Ellen. The funeral was small but heartfelt, with stories of Thomas's kindness, his precision, his courage. Ellen placed a photo of them hiking Rainier on the casket, her fingers lingering on his smile. Larson and his accomplices faced charges: fraud, drug trafficking, murder. The FBI dismantled their network, uncovering millions in illegal profits. Thomas had died to stop it, his moral compass unwavering even in the face of death. As Ellen drove home, Mount Rainier glowed pink in the sunset, a silent witness to Thomas's final stand. The grief was still there, sharp and raw, but mingled with pride. He'd seen through Larson's mask, risked everything to protect patients, families, lives. Ellen clutched the notebook, its pages now evidence in a federal case. Thomas hadn't told her to keep her safe, to shield her from the danger he faced alone. His sacrifice had saved countless others, and now, justice was coming. Ellen whispered to the mountain, "You did it, Thomas. You won." Well, have you ever heard of a case like this? Comment your thoughts. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and catch you in the next one.